Welcome to the Encore today. Okay, we got a couple of things we want to talk about. We're going to call this like a hodgepodgey day.
This will be our last show.
Yeah, we might be done.
No, it's not.
A couple of things to say. First and foremost, we're going to openly admit that we just needed a break from some heavy subjects. So today might be a little bit more lighthearted. A couple of things we want to discuss.
Yeah. Respond to. Appreciate the viewers out there.
Yeah.
Appreciate feedback.
Yes.
We really do.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Okay.
There has been a lot.
a lot. And there's a lot of things to say about some of those. So we're going to say that. We did an episode on anxiety and depression, I don't know, 2 weeks ago now, maybe. I'm not sure of the date.
Yeah.
And we've had, I would say a ton of feedback.
Mm-hmm. In all directions.
And negative and neutral and all of that.
Yeah.
So a couple of things we actually considered even doing a full follow-up episode on this, but just decided it was probably unnecessary for a couple of reasons. One, I want to start with this. Just to reiterate, I feel like we've said this, maybe we haven't done a good job of saying this. Our goal in this, in all of this, we'll call it the new format, is to begin to talk about things.
Yeah.
Bringing up subjects that maybe the church isn't good at talking about. All of that. Like we had Jeff on here almost a year ago to talk about homosexuality and stuff. And there's people that said good things, bad things, whatever.
6 months, but
okay.
6 months a year, what are you going to do?
Whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But yes.
And even in that, like our goal was let's begin to talk about those things. We need to have conversations. So, all right, this is not an excuse. I don't mean this to sound like an excuse to say, but the truth is a lot of people said you kind of came in uninformed and uneducated, and I would say, I'll speak on my side, yes, I did. But there's also a truth to go, I'm never going to spend countless hours researching certain things. I'm not saying I'm going to say, no, I'm never going to, but there are certain subjects that I'm just never going to know a lot about it. You're on the same.
Yeah.
So that's not an excuse to say we shouldn't do more homework or whatever, but we want people to know, like, our goal is to bring things up, and the response that we received is, in a way, what we're looking for. More conversations, right?
It accomplished the goal that we wanted it to.
Yes.
To consider these things, to consider the paradigm that has been framed very much, not exclusively, but very much in America at the lead as to how to treat some of these things.
Yeah.
We issued some challenges to it. I don't think we were unfounded in our challenge to it. We did not offer every solution under the sun. Mm-hmm. There were more solutions to be offered than we offered on the show, for sure. There are people that could speak more well-rounded to it, for sure. But the fact that all of that came out was the point of the episode. That is the point.
Right.
It is to stir, not controversy. I'm not looking to stir division here. That's not a godly thing to do. Right. But it did stir the topic. It did stir people's preconceived ideas as to what is and is not true, what is and is not effective, and they're talking about it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. So that is our point. I'm glad that you said that. We're not trying to necessarily stir up fights and say we're on this side, you're on that. That is absolutely not what we're trying to do. We are trying to have discussions, and I would say, I can speak for me personally. Like, I'm open to hearing some of those things and admitting some of these subjects I don't know a whole lot about. Let's continue the discussion.
Yeah.
So, having said that, I think there are a couple of specific things maybe we just wanted to address.
Sure. That sounds fine.
Yeah. So some overall things was, could we have done better research? Yes. Were there things we didn't go into discussion and talk about? Yes, for sure. So I'll admit to that. There is a specific email that we received that
so
I think you wanted to respond to.
And the reason is I want to acknowledge that if people reach out to us in certain things or they challenge something that is said, we're happy to hear it. We don't feel like we know everything. We don't want to be know-it-alls. We don't want to smack down constructive criticism or questions.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate people taking the time to listen. I appreciate people time to type things out. and we will respond to it. And if times there are retractions that need to be made, that's fine. So this gentleman watches, and he said, particularly what I said about Adderall, which interestingly did not get talked about in our feedback hardly at all. When I talked about kids and attention deficit disorder, I had some quite strong observations and opinions on that. I really do, and I still do. But I said some things. Erin said, I should have said it nicer. She's right, because she goes, listen, you don't realize how long you and Scott have known each other. So you two get in there and end up having a conversation. And the way me and you have conversations is an intense, and we both enjoy what we're doing.
Yeah.
Nobody's mad. She goes, but people inject themselves into that conversation as if you are talking to them. And the way you talk to Scott sometimes, because we come so strong, I mean, we'll do this over who's the best NBA player of all time.
Absolutely.
No, it's not. I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Absolutely.
And then we're like, you want to play some b-ball? Sure. And it just goes away. And she's like, you are 25 years familiar with Scott. And she's like, you need to acknowledge people don't see this side of you with your guard down with a close friend playing ping pong with the debate. And so she's right. So when I came, she goes, she said, I thought you were real nice about anxiety, depression, and left room for things. And she goes, when you got to
all of a sudden
ADHD and children and Ritalin and Adderall and these kind of things, she's like, you came guns. And I did. And I still believe those things, but there was probably a different way to say it. And so
it's not what you said, it's how you said it.
That's so my mother-in-law told me that one time, and she was right, and she's a great mother-in-law. She said, it's not what you're saying, Wes, it's your face.
It's your face.
I said, Ann, is it my tone? She's like, it's not your tone, it's your face. She's not wrong.
I know. I
appreciate it. It was great. So I have a problem with my face sometimes.
I have a problem with my face.
So anyway, I came guns on that, and I said something, and I went back and listened today. And so this guy said, let me read what he said. He said, I watched the Encore presentation on depression and anxiety. I found it odd that Wes would say that Adderall and meth are the same thing. They are similar, and meth can be prescribed for ADHD, but meth is not used in the manufacture of Adderall. Okay, so I went back and watched what I said. And I did say, you get talking and you say things, and I'm trying to convey a thought. It does not make it okay. I did say, from which they make crystal meth.
Okay.
And that is not a true statement. So apologies, sir. That is not a fundamentally true statement.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Here's where I'm coming from.
This stuff's all news to me, I won't lie.
Yeah, they are related. Yeah. And that is the thought that I was poorly in a fairly heated moment because I have strong feelings about these things. That I poorly relayed, and I relayed it inaccurately. So you are right, sir. I'm happy to give a retraction. They do not necessarily make crystal meth, as we see on like television shows and stuff, from like an Adderall pill from a prescription. I did say that in my ranting along the way, but I said other things alongside of it. I said they're very similar and these kind of things, but then I said this, and that's not true. That's not true.
Okay.
However, let me read what is true. Because the foundation of what I was trying to say is this. Methamphetamine, this comes from WebMD. By the way, I'm going to read two different things just to put it out there, what I tried to say and didn't do it very well. Both of these will be in the description in the Encore. I don't know, which camera am I supposed to look at? Like, so many cameras around here for two guys. I
have no idea.
I'm going to put our cool crew will put it in the description below if you want to click this and read this and whatever. One of them is WebMD. I know that one. I can't remember the other one. Methamphetamine and Adderall are both stimulant drugs. The word methamphetamine sounds very similar to amphetamine, one of the components of Adderall. In fact, methamphetamine is chemically related to amphetamine. So what just got said is methamphetamine, so then you can talk about crystal meth, is related to amphetamine, which is a foundational part of Adderall. So one article I did not put here said they are chemical cousins. Okay, so if you want beer and wine, right, those are not the same thing. But you get it? So moving on. It says, While Adderall and other stimulants are approved for use in treating several conditions, these drugs can have potentially harmful effects on users and can cause addiction. Methamphetamines are almost always associated with addiction, but meth is surprisingly very chemically similar to Adderall and other prescription stimulants. Methamphetamines are, in fact, a type of amphetamine. So remember, amphetamine is Adderall. And the only difference between the active ingredient in Adderall and the active ingredient in meth is a single methyl structure. In layman's terms, what this means is that the two drugs are very chemically similar. Although the difference in molecule structures does separate the two chemicals and cause different effects, the truth is that Adderall use can often mimic methamphetamine use. So they do not make crystal meth from Adderall. I'm not saying that. But are they chemical cousins? And can you trace the family back? I think you can. But my statement was not fundamentally accurate. So apologies for saying something that's like, wow. Like in the gentleman looked it up, and he's like, what you said is not actually true. That's true. But I still maintain the assertion of the dangers and the relation to hardcore street drugs that some of these supposed ADHD treatments have. I do kindly, gently just float that out there to be considered. And I'm not telling anyone to take it or not take it. I'm just saying that's interesting to think about.
Okay. I didn't do the research like you did. So
now, how was that? Now, how was that? Was that okay? I'm not mad. I'm not.
You ended well. You might have had a little heated in the middle of the reading. Your face as
well. So here's the thing. I try to read so people will understand. I read the Bible the same way.
You do.
Like I'm only trying to do it to be clear. Like I don't want to just do, and maybe I should, but I had no anger in it. I just want people to hear the words that are being said. But so what are you saying? Now tell me about myself.
Oh, this could go off the rails here all of a sudden.
Well, it bugs me that I don't want to be hurtful and obnoxious, and I can be.
You could read a sentence, however, all the words would never change. When the emphasis comes stronger on a particular point, it could be as if I'm trying to
put
say
it in your face
this
or
and
No, I'm not trying to do
this.
I'm not trying to do that. All right, that's fair.
You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I hope anybody listening out there understands I'm not trying to put anything. And understand, this is not the mission of my life.
Oh, yeah, I
just want to be a preacher, man.
Yeah.
I just want to preach the gospel. But I do realize if we're going to talk about things, and he questioned, like, if I make false statements and we don't acknowledge that, then am I just out there making false statements?
Fair.
And
That's
can
fair,
I be trusted? And then so I took that as, can I even be trusted as a preacher? And I want people to realize that I can be. I think I do try to do that. So I will acknowledge that. But I did make a fundamental assertion, and it was done not as accurately as it should have been in the previous episode. But I did want to say that it was coming from something that was fairly, you can see why I would say what I say, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on. We kind of call this like a hodgepodgey thing. We're going to shift into something a little bit different. It could be like, I think our goal was lighthearted. I don't know where this is going to go. But so we've talked about this like as an elder team and even how it relates to the church, but is the overscheduling of families, not necessarily
in
families,
lifestyles in general.
Lifestyles,
right?
yeah.
Sure.
And I've never lived outside of the United States. I would imagine there are countries that aren't so scheduled, strenuous. I'm not sure. But at the same time, whatever. I can only speak to where we live, what we see. There is always this emphasis or feel on do, busy, right? Think about this. When we talk to meaning anybody in our society, you bring up things, hey, how you doing? What you been up to? We always want to convince people how busy we are. You ever think about that?
Man. It's like it's you're not validated as a person unless you tell them you were doing 50. Oh man, I don't know if I'm coming or going. I've been driving my kids. I've been working these hours. Like,
yes. So you're right.
What are we? I don't know why.
That validates like a successful person. I think is what. But I think, I mean, I know I'm guilty of it too. I do it too when I think about that. It's like nobody ever wants to say, man, I got all the time in the world. I'm just sitting around, you know. People just don't want to say that. It somehow equates to success. But like when we think about it, the overscheduling and over busyness, a lot of that can be dangerous. So in the church, we've actually talked about, like, are we a part of that?
An alternate version of it.
Yeah. And sometimes we absolutely can be. So there's a couple things we'll talk about here, like the societal influence of that. Do you think that's an American thing, or is that just a worldwide thing? What do you think about that?
Oh, no, I think, you know, and I don't mean to keep coming back to American culture, but I think we do understand American culture, and I do, and you as well, but I guess I have gained a perspective from traveling so much in the last 20 years
fair,
to foreign countries. I observe these things. I ask questions. I watch lifestyles. I'm with families. I live in their house. I try to get a handle on different cultures in places in the world. And I've spent, quite frank, I'm not an expert. I'm not trying to be a guru here, you know, but I've spent a lot of time in other cultures observing. I mean, you tally it up. I mean, I've been gone for months and months and months over the years of just absorbing an understanding of who I'm talking to. And it is different.
In what way? Explain how it's different.
Well, Americans are, first of all, we are built on the automotive industry. The America we live in today, so we're getting into a weird territory, but the American society we live in today was built by Henry Ford.
Michigan.
Yeah, honestly, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
The lifestyle we live of everybody owning cars, of all the paved roads, which we did not have until Dwight Eisenhower did the great American highway system. This was a vision of Henry Ford.
40-hour work week? Is that
the 40-hour work week?
Yeah.
Is Henry Ford.
All right.
So yeah, you knew that. You were asking a question like you did.
I did not factually know that. I thought that.
So yeah, the assembly line, the 40-hour work week, even the neighborhoods. You know, Henry Ford is the one who created in Detroit. You know that you have. The Polish people live here, the Hispanic people live here, the Asian people, because he wanted to get laborers, but he wanted them to be comfortable. He didn't want to have to forsake all their culture, so he helped them get neighborhoods according to their culture. So they work a 40-hour work week and all of these things. So he wanted them close to the plant. So and so all of this stuff. And then it evolved into suburbia after World War II, and then you have commuters. Well, Henry Ford, the vision that he did not have is any kind of public transportation. He's not hugely in favor of city living and high rises and apartments and these kind of things. He wants people driving vehicles and everybody to own one. That was the vision.
Okay.
The modern version of that was Bill Gates wanted a personal PC in every single home in America. He got it, and so that's a very, So anyway, why? Your question is why. We are what I observe, if you're asking, we are a much more driving society. People in other countries, they don't own vehicles like we do. Now, I'm not talking necessarily about European-based countries like, for example, Australia and things like that are a little more similar than others. I'm talking about some of the African nations. I'm talking about some of the Caribbean nations, even in India and these kind of things. They are not driving like we are. They don't own vehicles like we do. And that's not always related to poverty. That is a lifestyle culture.
Okay. All right.
So that's part of it. I could go too long. I don't want to monologue. So I'm speaking to one end of it. But then you talk about suburbia. You talk about single-family homes. You talk about I think we idolize our children more than other cultures. I think our children become idolatry. I think our children, we have this idea you have to go to college and do all these things. And so that becomes a rat race that you chase. You get them on the best sports teams. You pay the money. You drive them to the games. And it just and they're not, the answer is no. I do not observe that the same in other countries. I do not. Not at the same level. It may exist somewhere. I've never seen it. I've seen it more than others, but I've never seen it like I see it here.
Okay. And I've traveled a little bit too, probably not the extent that you have. I would say, like, what I see is there's no we're very scheduled. So, like there's appointments and times, and we've been to different places in Haiti, Africa, where it's like it's going to happen when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And like it's like almost within 2 hours,
Yeah,
somebody will be here. Just roll with it.
Just roll with it. Relax.
Way laid back, and part of me like loves that, but then at the same time, because of how I've grown up, like I'm stressed out. Going, was this even going to happen? I'm a fairly punctual person. Like I have an appointment, I show up 15 minutes early just because and my I'll have friends that'll ask me to play golf like a week's out or whatever, and I'm like, give me a date, dude. Like I need it on my calendar. I need to like work through it just because I don't know, calendar driven. So that doesn't seem that set in other places.
No, I mean, do you share this observation or no? Like in what you have seen?
Yes, I do. Yeah, but I guess I'm trying to say I think my access is limited. Probably not as many places you have been. I've never been to Europe. There's a lot of GM people that here that work in Europe probably have seen a little bit more. I don't know. I'm not speaking for, but yeah, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So this isn't about like showing like, oh, I've been to all these places. That could be obnoxious. Like it's like a name dropper, like how stupid, right? But just to talk about Europe, because people might listen and go, well, you're talking about third world countries, so they don't have a choice. Okay, well, let's talk about Europe. They are not third world. I mean, we're talking about wealth and beauty and, capable of owning things and having. I've been to a lot of those countries: Great Britain, France, Spain, Czech Republic, Germany, some other places, and seen and walked in, and they still, they're not doing this. They are not doing it like this. And that's not to criticize everything we're doing, but they're not running themselves to death and running their, as a byproduct, you run your marriage into the ground. You run your health into the ground. You run your family. There's no quality time. And I think they think running their kids around and doing all this stuff is the quality time. And this is me doing the most for my children. I don't know that it always is having the impact we think it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do want to kind of bring it into a spiritual side too, because I would say then the church falls into that trap where we have to be doing everything all of the time. I have to be super scheduled. And I remember 16 years ago when I first started ministry, I remember, and I admitted this to myself one time, I remember thinking, if my schedule is busy, then
you're hustling,
doing the work of the Lord.
Yeah, right.
And I was convinced of that for myself. And then I literally sat back one day and was like, doing what? What
are we doing?
What am I doing? And so, so anyways, to say that, like, I think I want to talk about two things too in this, where there is some real spirituality in rest and in downtime as well, that I think as Americans, we're like, if I'm resting, I'm lazy. There's no spiritual side of that.
Yeah.
And, the effects of it, burnout and stuff like that's a part of it, but that's just after effects. I think a lot of us are kind of into it thinking, I am spirit, so whatever. Let's say I have to provide for my family. I'm going to, this is a biblical concept. So now I got to work 60 hours a week because this guy's working 58 hours a week. So I got to work 2 more than him. But anyway, let's turn it to like a spiritual side of it. For you as a pastor, what would you say would be the drive that we would want to shepherd people towards in that mindset?
Well, the heart of the Sabbath. It's not that we observe Jewish law here, right? Christ has set us free from the law of sin and death. But the heart of the law is not wrong. Like people look at the Old Testament, they're like, well, that's the Old Testament law. Okay, well, we still shouldn't murder people. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not have any other gods before. That's all true. Jesus validated all of that in the New Testament. He affirmed it, and he said, on these 2 things hang the whole law. It doesn't go away. He fulfills the law and the prophets. One of which was keep the Sabbath holy, which was a day of rest. That idea, that heart, I guess the spirit of the law, if you want, ought to be present in our life in every way. In the same way as, no idolatry, stealing, adultery, murder. So where's the Sabbath? And people think that means going to church. That's not what it means.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not what it means.
Yeah.
I mean, the worship is a part of it, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean church. Well, the Sabbath is Sunday now, and they moved. It's
Uh-huh.
not the same idea. The idea of rest, a rhythm of rest in our life, was instituted from the time of the creation by God in
Right.
Genesis.
Right.
And if we forsake that, we are forsaking a law of not only spiritual health, but physical health and an honoring of God
Mm-hmm.
that was put into the scripture and put into humanity, written into the life of a Christian. And so when we throw that away, we're going to suffer for it.
Yeah.
We're going to suffer a consequence, just like there is a consequence for it. One could argue, I would be one of them, that it is even sinful to neglect the idea of proper rest and focus and spiritual worship.
Yeah.
And so that's, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No,
about
that's
me
great. Yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think about that sometimes.
Okay.
And you have to let God entitle you to do so because, again, the American society does not cheer that on.
Right.
They guilt
Right.
they guilt you for doing
Right.
that.
Right.
And wouldn't that just be like the world to attack something that God has put into place?
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, and it's interesting too because it's even in American society, I feel like everybody is striving to get to that place, retirement, whatever. How they define it.
Yeah.
But you work so hard so that you could do that. But even the mindset, people don't ever want anybody to think that they have all this time on their hands.
No.
And it's not about time. So what's that fake Bible verse that people make up? I'm going to go the opposite. Like idleness is of the devil.
An idle mind is the devil's workshop.
Is the devil's workshop.
Yeah, it's not in
right?
the Bible.
No, it is not in the Bible. But that's the opposite side of that, where they would say, basically, if you're sitting around doing nothing, and that verse is not in the Bible, but there is obviously something to be said about laziness, and Paul talks about like busybodies, people that are getting into other people's business.
It does say that
basically
yes.
because
Yeah,
it's a little bit related to not having a lot to do.
that's true.
It is. So there's something dangerous on the side of, let's call it idleness, but that doesn't have to equate to working necessarily, right? Or having all of these things to do. It's basically about, like, I would say, a goal and a mission. And I think I think it's 2 Thessalonians. I think I wrote it down earlier. I didn't bring my Bible.
Here we are unprepared again.
Super unprepared. Well, I was reading it earlier in preparation for this, but I forgot. But it's basically talking about that. So you're idle, and so you use your time getting into other people's beeswax.
Mind your own.
Mind your own beeswax.
Yes,
Yeah.
but you're touching on, I think, the right idea.
Yeah.
Idleness is not a momentary thing. Idleness, I think, when it talks about that in the Bible, is talking about the lack of purpose in your life.
Lack of direction or mission. That's kind
Rest
of how
is not idleness. That's not the same thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Rest is not laziness.
Yeah.
Sluggardness is sluggardly, and
Yes.
the sluggard of Proverbs, and laziness and the refusal to work, and idle hands, and being unable to, the Bible talks about this metaphor of you're unable to lift your hand from the bowl to feed yourself, and you're just a slug.
Mm-hmm.
That is not Sabbath rest.
Right.
That is not
Right.
a time of recharging. That is not being rejuvenated in the Lord. That is not acting like God acted in the book of Genesis and Jesus acted in the New Testament. That's different. I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
That's a different-
yeah. Yep.
You're just living an aimless, pointless, worldly focused life where you just look at everybody else and become a critical spirit and run your mouth and,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if Christians are using that as the idea of I have to be working or busy all the time, right? Because of the spiritual. So I am trying to differentiate that. Not having a mission or a goal, yes, and getting into other people's business, that is not what we're called to do. That is not what we're trying to do. So even when the people of the church, like, we are overscheduled, right? So we have our kids' baseball practice or whatever these things are, and those end up driving our schedules so much that many families are burned out. And like a lot of times, like, you think about that, this is kind of a cheesy saying, but when you say yes to say something, you're saying no to a lot of other things.
You are, yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think we think about it that way. And even that, like, I don't know, for rest's sake, man, rest is huge spiritually in the sense like just for you and I in ministry.
Yeah.
This isn't to play the martyr or whatever, but ministry never ends. There's always something to do.
No,
there's always one more person to meet with, one more person to call, and again, I remember early in my ministry I was trying to think that like just stay busy, and so I was super spiritual doing that. But then you come to a point now, like you have 100 kids, I have 3 kids, and I mean, you are literally neglecting your family at some point.
Which disqualifies you from ministry.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But, pastor aside, whatever, people within the church we're called to do the same thing. You know, it doesn't matter your position. And I'm not saying people are neglecting their families all the time by doing this. But that lack of rest, I think, is driving a lot of that. And even, I would say, we think spiritually like I have to be doing something.
Yeah.
And so we talk about our work, but
I think this is something that the COVID pandemic revealed as a problem in people.
Yeah.
Some people just couldn't function. Like they
Right.
couldn't manage themselves.
Right.
Like they were in a literal panic. Now, again, I don't know, some people were in horrible households and I'm not talking about like, scenarios that were a unique set of circumstances where it was, you were forced to stay inside of a miserable situation. Of course, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
But regular people that think that they're living a regular functional life, have a marriage, have a family, have a life, they could not just sit at home for a time and be content. And it was like torturous to people. And I think that should be alarming as to why. Like, why are you not happy just being? Just be.
Yeah.
What's the Bible say? Be still and know that I am God. People don't want to be still at all. They don't want to be quiet. They don't want the world to stop. They want a constant, heightened sense of distraction. And when they were forced inside, when they were forced to stay home for a while, and they just had the people they had. And I'm not talking about people that were alone and got super lonely. I understand. There are different. I think the people that I need to talk to probably know who I'm talking to. I think that revealed something that needed to be revealed. And if it was a problem to stay home with your wife, if it was, people made comments all the time. Oh my word, these kids and my wife, and well, that's not good, man. Like that isn't. If your life is a constant pursuit of a distraction, a constant pursuit of an activity, and that's how you're functioning as a marriage and a family, I don't know if that's a marriage and a family. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's really good. I'm glad you used the word distraction because, that was kind of the other part that I wanted to bring up with this is in all of it, like that's what it is. It's distracting us from having real conversations. And I honestly think, part of the COVID years, like that's why the world blew up, like politically and things like that, is because people were beginning to talk about these things and people couldn't handle it.
No, they can't.
You're right. And relationships with kids and spouses, it's like you're just forced to be around them. And that's not necessarily to indict anybody because I don't know who's who, but that's what it should be about. Like I do think our American society, busy, driven, just forces us to not think about things. And I know personally for me, I'm pretty good about blocking things out of my mind. I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that.
No, I know.
To say like, I just forget about it. I don't want to deal with it right now because I have this thing in front of me or whatever. And you can avoid real life issues. But I think you're right. I think that brought it out. And it feels like we're right back into.
We went right
3
back,
years
and people
ago.
couldn't wait. Some people, they just couldn't wait to get back to what this is. And
Yeah.
I do, just speaking personally, as I just observe it and see it and hear it and feel it, the pressure has built back. And I'm not talking about gospel ministry stuff. I'm not talking about things that matter eternally. I'm just talking about, all the running around. I think that's regretful. I think that's a mistake. I think that's a negative in our society. And I thought that was a very positive thing for that time. Like I thought that was I don't, of course people died and there was all this stuff and everything, but I'm not talking about that, but the fact that we had to sit home and just be with yourself and others was the best thing that could have happened. Yeah. I wish it would happen once a year, but people would be terrified for that to happen again. And that's too bad. Yeah. And I think that we live a lot for frivolous, meaningless things, and we chase it and think we did something, and we didn't do anything.
Yeah,
absolutely. And we just ran our life away, and I have a lot to think. I have a lot of thoughts about that, a lot to say about it. Yeah. I'm trying not to be a jerk here like I have been before, so.
Well, just say it nicer. I don't
care. I'm trying to say it nice. I don't like it, Scott. Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like a lot about our American society. I don't like the American dream. I don't like the American culture. And that's not to indict America. So people will be like, "Man, good luck. Why don't you go live in the Ukraine?" I understand. I'm not saying that. Yeah. But I think we have this idea that everything we do is right and perfect, and I think we have ripped families apart. I think we have overpressured kids. I think we have ruined the family structure. I don't think people sit down for dinner. I don't think people sit and just talk to each other. I don't think people just sit and take in nature. The neighbors don't stop by anymore and bring a pie. I just think that idea that was once part of what America was has been run out of society, running everyone around and standing on sports fields and extracurricular activities. I'm talking a lot about family because I have one, but the single person maybe is unrelatable right now. But and I don't like it. Yeah. And I liked when it crashed, and I think that I don't speak ill of people's plight and how that affected them negatively.
Right. I know.
But for me and my observance and my context, I like when it all fell down, and part of me hoped some of it never came back, but a lot of it did.
A lot of it did. Yeah, and we're in a different place. But again, we could talk about every subject we talk about for several hours. I don't want to belabor the point, but
yeah, for sure. It's ridiculous how long we can talk in here.
Yeah. So. Whatever, we kind of went lighthearted today. Just kind of a thought on, maybe that would just spark some things in our mind. I know for me it has. Like you go from the COVID year to, have I fallen into the trap again? Right. And then there's there's the side of, there could be people that are wishing for laziness and idleness too. Yeah, so I did want to address that. That's a problem. That is a different thing. But again, that distraction of busyness and work, that equals success for us. So, I don't know, hopefully it just helps people get to think about what their priorities are, what their missions are and what their goals are. And I thought about that for me in my ministry that years ago, going like, I am literally just filling a schedule, and it is not in any way achieving a mission or a goal that I thought I had originally set out to do.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And I know we can fall into that trap. But anyway, it's a good reminder for that. So I hope people are...
And I think to say something practical to people out there, like they hear this like, I don't feel good about my life. And I will say this, I guess for me personally, I don't get it all right, but I do fight for this. Yeah. I do. And if you're not going to fight for it, the world will just suck you in. It's a vortex to be fought against day to day. You have to make hard decisions for your kids sometimes, just to be a family, to be home, to be a couple, to be a single adult if you are one, and just be alone and be still and know that He is God. We're not talking about lazy. Yeah. But I find myself, and I'm willing to do it, but it's a constant, deliberate effort, pushing back and going, nah, I'm not succumbing to this in the same way. And it's, it's a new fight every day. It's a new decision every day.
Yeah, it is.
And I think I just want to tell people you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to be different. You're allowed to say no. You're not damaging your kids to say, hey, we're not going to be involved in that this summer. We're just going to be a family. In fact, I would just float out there for you. You might be damaging your kids worse to let them do every single thing that they want to do.
It is possible.
And just be a family. Yeah. And so I just wanted to say,
no, that's really good. That's really good.
There's something you can do about it rather than just hear it and feel a pit in your stomach. Do something about it.
Yeah. No, I think that's good too. But I had to come to a place in my ministry. I say it's life, but whatever. When I was initially in ministry, where I go, I do have to specifically say no to things.
Yeah.
And I tend to be a people pleaser, and I'm like, I want to help them out. I want to do this, but I remind myself, like, when I'm saying yes to somebody, I'm saying no to something else. And so I've thought, dude, I got to say no to some things. And I think that's healthier in many ways. And everybody's got to evaluate for that for themselves, but it's worth thinking about. It's worth reevaluating every year. And now let's reevaluate it again, coming out of COVID, where we're kind of fully back in the grind.
Right.
What is the mission for you as a person, as a family, and as a church? We're talking too much, but there are things that we do, and people come to us and say, "Hey, would you ever do this?" And we'll be like, "You know what? No,
nope."
Just because
that's not
part
I do
of
like you,
right? That's just not part of our mission, and that's not part of what our church is missioned towards. Yeah. So something like a softball league or whatever. You go play softball with your people. That's okay.
Go be a light.
I don't want the church's job to be that, and that doesn't mean you couldn't have an effective softball ministry. That's
of course
aside the point.
Of course not.
But we're on a mission, and again, you're right. We found some of those things out in COVID, but hopefully we can reevaluate for ourselves. And we constantly, elder meetings, reevaluate that too with the church.
Right.
But okay, I'll close it out from there.
Wow.
Hopefully, there's been several comments back with people requesting different topics.
Good ones.
I would love to continue those. Please shoot us back with some ideas. We do have a few built out for the summer.
Yeah.
But sometimes we can push those aside or fit other ones in the schedule. We would love to do that. But we appreciate all of the feedback and the conversation that it has drawn up. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're hoping to do. I hope you guys know that we're not always up here trying to claim all the right answers.
Right.
We want to continue the conversation. So thank you for being a part of this. And as always, don't take our word for it, being his. And we will see you next time on the Encore.